of product development in the Sharia fintech space. I think we all know him. He's kind of the go-to Mufti on fintech and Sharia compliance around financial instruments here in the UK. So let's get down to it, Mufti Sahab.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. جزاك الله خير Wasim. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you all here today. Yeah, to be honest, I just don't like intros because it's just like they can be long, they can be short. But we all need to better ourselves. When you hear your own intro being done, you think you've achieved something. Whereas Islam teaches, and Ramadan being the month of purification,
Definitely.
Let's hear less about ourselves and more about others, kind of thing, right? So anyway, today we're talking about zakat. Zakat is all about purification, right? So it properly chimes in with our discussion. What is zakat? How important it is? Why do we need to calculate it? Why do we need to pay? This is what this class is about, right? So before we jump into the calculation, I just want to spend 1-2 minutes on talking about the essence of zakat, which is, if somebody was to ask me, how do you describe zakat, right? This is always a challenging question because zakat is a multi-dimensional act. It really has so many faces, so many benefits, so many wisdoms, so many ways it impacts individuals and society. And therefore, it's very hard to kind of put in under any one kind of definition or category. So what I generally say is, I always describe zakat as a pillar of Islam. I think that is probably one of the most traditional as well as the most empowering ways. Why? Because if it's a pillar of Islam, Allah selected this to be a pillar, right? And if Allah selected this to be a pillar of our faith, that just shows you how central it is to our faith, right? Not only that, to add to that, Salah and Zakat have been connected in the Quran 28 times over and over again. That just shows how central these themes are within our faith and why it's so important for us to ensure we are well aware of what it is, but at the same time, how to calculate it and how to distribute it correctly. That's very important. And so that's for just to kind of understand that zakat at a high level, it's a pillar of Islam, which means it's an integral of our faith. It's something which our identity is understood by. And because if it's a pillar of Islam and we are called Muslims, that means we are abiding by Islam. That means zakat is a form of identifying a Muslim. The giving and the paying of zakat is your ID. That's literally what it is. Zakat is an ID for every Muslim. If we are not doing zakat, we don't have an ID of Islam or Muslim, right? Which is very, very, we understand how important that is, that this is synonymous to your identity, right? And that's why we have to take this very seriously. So the agenda today, right? Wasim, what we'll do is we'll quickly go through zakat essentials, right? Yep. Then I want to do a live run through of the NZF calculator because all the theory is well and good, but then how do you practically go about putting those numbers in and working it all out? That's what we'll do on the calculator, and then we'll open up the floor for some Q&A.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea because what I did last year is I did a couple of these sessions and I still had some questions. I wasn't quite 100% sure on what I was doing, but when I went into the zakat calculator, that helped me immensely. So I think two things. Firstly, you think watch this demonstration of the calculator, but then go ahead, create your accounts and go through the motions of creating your own zakat calculation, because it'll help you understand how to do it, and B, it might raise further questions that you then can bring to people, can bring to NZF. So I think that's a really good idea.
Absolutely. Right. So look, whenever we talk about zakat calculation, there's always two areas that we need to understand and approach. The two separate areas, distinct areas in terms of calculation. The first area is the principles and the conditions around the zakat payer, who becomes eligible to pay zakat, who must pay zakat, right? And who should not pay zakat. And then within that discussion, we talk about how does the cycle work of calculation, okay? That's one discussion we'll address right now. The second discussion, which is the more kind of nitty-gritty, the more kind of detailed discussion, is the different zakat assets, zakatable assets. What are they? What do you pay zakat on? And what don't you pay zakat on? And that's a separate discussion. So these are the two discussions we'll have. So let's kickstart the first one, which is more about the zakat payer. So we all know you have to be Muslim, right? Everybody knows a non-Muslim is not required to pay zakat. Very easy. But then there's two conditions which are highlighted within the Hanafi school, which are number one, having mental capacity. So a person must be sane, have mental capacity. If they don't have mental capacity, according to the Hanafi scholars, zakat is not due upon that person's wealth. And number two, they must be mature and adolescent. It can't be a 5-year-old child, according to the Hanafi school.
Yeah.
They say just as salah and prayer is not compulsory, how can you make zakat compulsory upon this child, right? Whereas the other schools, the Shafi school, the Maliki school, and the Hanbali school, they're of the view that zakat is due upon the wealth of the minor, of the one who lacks mental capacity, on everyone. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be sane. It's zakat is due upon your wealth, and therefore zakat is always due. That's the other argument, right? So this is like whichever school you follow or teaching you follow, you're more than welcome to take that view. We just generally go with the Hanafi school because we know from the people that we serve, majority of the people follow this view of having mental capacity and being adolescent. Then the question arises, okay, we understand that who needs to pay, but then there's a term that's always used in zakat lingo, right? Which is nisab. What is nisab? Nisab literally just means threshold. That's all it means. And for this discussion, all you have to worry about is the silver nisab. There are two nisabs, but gold is something that nobody really practices upon in the UK. It's very uncommon. Generally, the majority of scholars, as well as the people, when they pay zakat, they use a silver nisab, which is fluctuating between 360 and 350 pounds right now. Okay,
Right.
That means there is this value a person must have to then be obliged to pay zakat. If you don't have net zakatable assets, and we'll discuss all of that, what it means, then zakat is not due upon you.
Right.
So if you have, for example, £300 at year end or at the end of the year, on your zakat date, zakat will not be due upon you, right? So now let's look at this in practice. What does it look like in a chart, right? And I love these charts, right? They're really helpful in explaining. So look, let's take Wasim as an example, right? This is Wasim. Wasim has in Jumad al-Thaniya, he is this. Look at the red bar, right? He has the nisab, which is 362 pounds and 6 pence. That's why his year begins, right? Yeah, on the dot. And remember, this is just a demonstration, an example. Really, the nisab fluctuates daily. So this black line would not be straight. It would be volatile, rising, fluctuating, decreasing across the entire year. But here you go, look, Wasim has the nisab on this date. So he makes a note of this date in his phone or wherever, right? And then look at throughout the year, his wealth has stayed above the nisab. Very little fluctuation. Come year end, his zakat anniversary, does he have wealth equal to, above, or below the nisab? Wasim, what do you have?
I'm above, alhamdulillah.
Okay, alhamdulillah, you're above. So that means because at the year end you're above, and the live nisab, the current nisab, the live nisab, you are above that. That means you have to pay zakat.
Yeah.
The question is, do you pay zakat on the nisab value, or do you pay zakat on how much money you have? Which one would it be?
How much money I have.
Exactly, right? It'll always be on the money you have. It's not about nisab. It's about how much you have. You pay on the full amount. And another thing, do you deduct the nisab or you don't?
Nope.
Exactly. That's another common question. So you don't deduct the nisab. All you do is you pay zakat on the full value that you have. Whatever amount you have, you pay zakat on that. So that's very easy, right?
Yeah, and the way I work this out is I only need to know nisab on 2 days, really, for my work. The last year's nisab at the point at my clock started, and this year's nisab at the point at which my clock stops.
Yeah.
Right. Those 2 dates.
Really, it'll always just be on one date then on your zakat.
It's always on one date. Yeah. It's last year's and this year's. It's the same date.
It's going to be that same date and going. So only one time in the year going forward you'll check. If you have.
And Faraz, is that the Gregorian calendar, normal kind of January, February calendar, or is that Islamic calendar always?
No, so we should use the Islamic calendar, but there is an allowance by scholars to use the Gregorian English calendar. But if you were to do that, you'd put 2.577%, right? Because of the discrepancy between the solar and lunar calendar.
Oh, good. That's a really good point. That's important. So if anybody is using kind of January, February, and they pay January the 1st every year, then the percentage is slightly different. It's 2.577. 2.577. So that's a significant difference.
But generally, we never encourage people to do that because look, this is the only way we keep in touch with our heritage, right? So you should stick to the lunar calendar as best as you can.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having a conversation with my boss today, and he said, "Oh, how's your Ramadan going?" I said, "It's going really well. It's the 17th today. We've got potentially 12 or 13 days." And he said, "Oh, it's interesting that you know which date it is." And I said, "Yeah, because this is the one time of the year where Muslims know what date it is on this in the lunar calendar." And actually, that's a little bit sad because we kind of have lost connection with our own kind of traditions calendar, and it's probably a good way of keeping in contact with that, knowing kind of which Nisab date we have, and keeping a track of that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, that's why I will always encourage people to use the Islamic calendar as much as we can, right? Then the second scenario is, look, here's Wasim. He has again Nisab. So in Jumada Thaniya, here you go. He's got over and above the Nisab. Look at his wealth. He's touching 650, right? But then what happens is he's spending on his family, he's giving gifts away. Comes year end, he's below the Nisab, below the threshold. Is there zakat to pay? Yes or no? No, no zakat to pay whatsoever, right? And what will happen now? This year will be nullified, will be cancelled. He'll wait now until the next time he has money equaling the threshold and Nisab, and that will start a whole new cycle.
Yeah, it starts the clock again.
Exactly. And that's how it works. If you're equal to above the Nisab, you pay. If you're below, your year is cancelled. You'll wait again till the next time you reach that threshold, and then you start a new cycle. And that's it. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And inshallah, I mean, the Nisab for it's not a huge amount of money, right? So inshallah, it means that most of us are eligible for zakat. And obviously, I don't want to make any assumptions about anybody, but you know, £360, alhamdulillah, is you know, it's not thousands of pounds. It's an amount that most people who are working will have in their accounts at some point. So you know, alhamdulillah, it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually made quite easy for us. It's not the most difficult thing, and it's much smaller than the amount we will pay for income tax. So if you think of it that way, it's actually very manageable.
Yeah, of course, right? And alhamdulillah, it doesn't even work like income, right? Zakah is based upon your savings, not in your earnings, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge benefit there. If it was in your earnings, it would be challenging.
It would be difficult, yeah.
So then, okay, we've understood the cycle, we've understood the conditions. Now let's dive into the assets. So the formula for assets is this, what you see on your screen. It's assets minus liabilities, then 2.5% on the net amount, whatever that is. Okay, it's as simple as that. Now let's break down the assets. So the first thing is cash. This is the easiest of all. Wherever it is, whether it's in the bank, in your wallet, in your digital wallet, whether it's under the mattress, under the pillow, you've saved it with a friend, wherever it may be, all cash is zakatable. Every single currency is zakatable, right? Very easy. Number two, I know there's a lot on your screen here that you can see, but don't get baffled by what's on the screen. This is for you and your reference later on. You just have to focus on two things. Zakah is only due upon two types of debt. Number one, money which you've lent out to others, that is zakatable. So any loan, that's zakatable. Number two, any outstanding invoices from your business. So you've sold on credit. Anything you sold on credit, that is zakatable as part of your business, not as part of your personal property. So for example, I just one day happened to not want my iPad and I put it onto eBay for sale.
Yeah.
Right. But I've not been paid. The seller still hasn't paid me. Right. Or the buyer still hasn't paid me. Right. In that instance, I will not pay zakat on that because that's my personal property. It's only on business goods that I'm buying and selling as a business and it's outstanding. Okay.
Right.
In this instance, there is an option. The option is I can pay zakat every single year whilst a loan is outstanding, or I can just wait until the borrower pays me back after 5 years and then pay for every single year retrospectively. So I have both options, right, to make it easy. Everything else is not zakatable. Every other debt or receivable is not zakatable. So if I've lost hope of repayment, not zakatable.
Right.
As I mentioned, the sale of an iPad, which is my personal item, is not zakatable.
Right.
Wages, fees, which have not been paid yet. I'm a contractor. I've not received my wages. Not zakatable.
Right.
If a sister got married and the husband promised her £50,000, she's never seen that in her life, she will not have to pay zakat on the outstanding amount, right? And likewise, if somebody passed away in the family and the shares of the estate have not been distributed yet, then zakat will not be due upon the money that you're expecting to receive from the inheritance, right? So none of this is zakatable, and that's it really for receivables.
Yeah. So just a quick message from me. People are beginning to ask questions. So thank you. That's very, very, very helpful. What we're going to do is go through these slides and then come back to the questions. Although Mufti Faraz, one of the sisters, Salvia Begum, has asked if we could go over the second slide quickly. Do you want to do that at the end, or do you want to do it now quickly?
I mean, just best thing would be also just ask a question about a specific the question that you have.
Yes.
Right?
So Sylvia, sister, if you could ask a specific question, we'll answer that specific question for you rather than going over the slide again, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to gold and silver, and remember, everybody will get a copy of this recording anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you can always review this, the whole thing again. When it comes to gold and silver, if you follow the Hanafi school, then all gold and silver is zakatable, whether you wear it, whether you don't wear it, whether it's an earring, a bangle, a necklace, wherever it may be. It's all zakatable. Simple as that, right? The other schools, which is the Maliki school, the Shafi'i school, and the Hanbali school, they're of the view that zakat is not due upon anything a sister wears, because they say, look, that's just like her clothing.
Yeah.
It's her personal accessories. That's all it is. So therefore, there should be no zakat. They say zakat's not due upon a sister's earrings, bangles, rings, everything which is just jewelry, no zakat. But if you follow the Hanafi school, then a question arises: what about 9-carat gold? What about 12-carat gold?
Yes.
So the ruling is zakat is due upon those items, but in proportion to the gold and silver in the item. Right. So all you need to do is work out how much 9 carats gold, how much is 1 gram worth. That's it. And then you multiply by the number of grams. And you can go Google this. It's all on Google. Like scrap, and we mentioned use scrap gold value. What that means is it's a used gold value. That's what you need to use, right? Used gold. And again, you can Google this and find the scrap gold value very easily online for different carats. It's all available online. And then if we move away, so we've done cash, we've done receivables, we've done gold and silver, right? The next asset class, which is zakatable, is stock and inventory, things which are bought to resell. That's what we mean. Yeah. So anything a business buys to sell. So think about your local store, the milk, the bread, the chocolates. And sorry, I hope I'm not making people hungry here, but those things which you normally see in a shop, in a store, all of that is zakatable, right? To make it easy.
Cheeseburgers.
Let's not go there, right? All of that, right? You're
getting ahead of yourself, Wasim.
Right? All of that is zakatable. But then look, if we zoom out, businesses typically have 3 things, which we've discussed. Cash, receivable, we've discussed. They're always zakatable, of course. So whether they're personal items or in business items, they're zakatable. And of course, the addition is stock and inventory, which we just discussed. One point to keep in mind: whenever valuing stock and inventory, it will always be on the retail price. Right? So what's the current value of this item? How much is it being sold for? That's the price I'll use for zakat calculation.
So if we buy something for £10 and we sell it for 15, the zakat value is 15.
Yeah, so we're advertising and it's listed for £15, right? That's the price tag. It'll be on the £15.
Right, which makes sense, right? Because that's the amount of, you have to imagine that it's money, and if it's money, then it'll be the amount of money that you pay for it. Yeah.
It's the cash equivalent of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. Then the following are not included. So a business will have goodwill and other intangible assets. They're not zakatable. Property, plant, and equipment is just a fancy word for infrastructure, right? The infrastructure, the building, and these things, it's not zakatable. Capital goods and fixed assets, your delivery van, you might have some tills, shelving, and these things. None of that's zakatable in the business. So you're really just looking at cash, receivables, and the things that you're selling. That's all in the business.
So the things which are liquid, not something which is solid, right? So a house, if you're or you have a warehouse which you keep stock in, you don't have to pay zakat for that warehouse.
Absolutely, exactly, right? So then, okay, we've done all of that. We've done cash, receivables, gold and silver, and we just did business, stock and inventory. Or property. So as a principle on your residential home, there's no need to sweat or worry. There is no zakat on your residential property at all. So you can be living in a £500,000 house, there's no zakat due, right?
Right.
If you're renting a property, what happens? Zakat, again, is not due on the property value. It's only on the cash, the rental income, even that it's the unspent amount that's retained with you on your year, and as we discussed earlier, right? But if you're a property trader, and what we mean by this, you're buying property with the only intention to resell. You're doing a quick refurb or something and looking to resell. That will be zakatable every year because that's your
Right.
business
Yeah.
that you. Now it gets a bit more complicated. A lot of text on the screen, but again, as I said, don't look at the screen. Just look at me and focus on me, right? There's two things all you have to think about. If you're trading short term, you're buying and selling, you're buying low, selling high, you're in the markets trading shares. The only intention is to quickly sell and flip a share and make some profit quickly. That's all your intention is. You're certain to sell. That's the only intention you've bought this with. You're not looking to keep it long term. Zakat will always be on the full value of the share. Okay. However, if I invested in shares with the intention, I want this to be part of my portfolio for long-term purposes. I'll sell one day in the future, but right now I'm not selling it. I'm keeping this as part of my portfolio. So I've got a nice portfolio of different shares. So one of those pies that you see on the markets, that's what I have. Zakat will not be due on the full value. Rather, it will be on 25% of the value of my shares. So just say my shares are worth £10,000.
So let's do a quick example then. So I bought 2 shares, and this is a real life example.
Okay.
I bought 2 shares, and my initial intention was, inshallah, these will go up in the next 4 or 5 months, and then I'll sell them. Inshallah, I'll make some money. So that would be a zakatable asset.
A full value, because
full value.
you've bought to resell.
Yeah.
Very clearly, you've got a mark, and you've bought it with that one intention only. Right?
Yeah. So
Alternatively,
one went to the price that I wanted, and I sold that. The other one didn't, and I did the stupid thing of holding on to it. So if I'm holding on to that now, let's say I'm holding on to it for 2 years, does that now then flip into the other class, or do I?
yes. So now, if your intention is, look, I'm no longer selling this. No, I no longer want to sell it. I want to hold it for long term, and maybe after 2 years I'll sell.
Yeah.
Right. If the market conditions are right,
At some point in the future, I would want to sell that. Obviously,
it will not be zakatable. It's full value. Now you'll
really
only take the 25% proxy.
Yeah.
So in the instance, for example, if it's £10,000 it's worth, what's 25% of that, Wasim? Let's see if you're.
That's £250.
Are you sure?
No.
I always get everybody on this one, right?
£250, yeah.
I always ask Mahbub as well, and he has to think about this. No, 10,000, right? 25. It's 2,500, right?
Oh, 25. Sorry, I think you said 2.5. I've got the zakat value in my head.
No, you're right. 2.5 is right. Oh, you're right. So nobody's wrong.
Sorry.
So you're one step ahead of us, right?
Sorry.
2,500. I'm not going to ask you what's 2.5% 2,500. That I won't do. That's criminal. That'll be cruel, right? I think something like £62.50. I'm not sure, right? £62.50 maybe.
Something like that. Off the top of my head, yeah.
Something like that, right? So that will be the zakat. So all you need to do is take 25% of your shareholding value.
Yeah.
Right? So 25% of that. So, and then you apply 2.5% on the 25%. That's your zakat done.
Right. That makes sense.
For shares. Then, if that was technical, this might just be a bit more technical, and that's why you're getting a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording, so you can view this slide for 10 minutes over and over again in the comfort of your homes.
Yeah.
Pensions, what's all that about, right? So zakat is not due upon defined benefit schemes. So let's take them out altogether. Right? Kick them out of the equation. Defined benefit schemes. That's the public sector, the NHS, civil service, all of this kind of stuff. Zakat is not due upon those pensions. So we don't want to talk about them, right? We're only concerned with defined contribution schemes, which is generally the private sector norm, right? If you work in any private sector company, you'll have a defined contribution scheme. The question is, how do you go about doing that? So really, the approach would be you have to sit down, look at your fact sheets, get all the paperwork, sit down, get a calculator out, look at the assets, the breakdown of the assets in the fund. That's what you'd have to do, right? Which it's not easy for everybody.
Very complex.
So what we did two years ago at NZF, we thought, look, this is enough, right? We need to help people here. So what we did was we looked at the top 100 funds of these 5 categories, so 20 funds of each. And we realized a direct property fund only has, on average, 15% maximum of zakatable assets. And therefore, if you apply 15% to your pension fund, which is of direct property or property fund, then that will cover your liability. Likewise, a Sharia fund. We looked at the top 20, and we saw that the maximum, or and the average was 26%. There was no fund that we came across which had more than 26% in terms of its zakatable assets, right? So if you take 26%, we're very confident that your zakat will be paid. And so it's the same for everything. And of course, I just want to make this disclaimer here: bonds and fixed income pensions are not Sharia compliant, but it's sad that people do have them. So I would definitely consider if your pension is Sharia compliant or not. That's very, very important.
Yeah, because we're talking about zakat, but actually there's another principle which is more important to some extent, that your income is halal in the first place, right? Worry about zakat second.
Yeah, zakat is the secondary matter there, because look, somebody said, "Oh yeah, I need to pay my zakat on my interest mortgage, right? Or my zakat on my interest here." Like, what's that about?
Off license, I own how much do I pay zakat on that? Well,
exactly.
Your bigger problems.
Yeah, exactly, right. And this is something we need to think about, right? Prioritizing. What's the priorities in our life, right?
Yeah.
So that's, okay. So that's the assets done. Let's jump onto the liabilities. So you can deduct certain things. What can you deduct from your life? So once you've added up all these things, your gold, your silver, your cash, your stock and inventory, any shares that you're trading, you've added all that up, you can deduct debts which are payable in full within the next 12 months. So meaning anything which has been incurred. So I bought an iPad and I had 12 months interest free, right? Credit, and I'm paying monthly. So I can deduct the full debt that's due for that. Okay,
Right.
it's already been incurred.
Yeah.
All my council tax has been incurred. I want to pay it off. I can deduct that. If it's a long-term liability over 3 years, I bought some furniture, right? Some nice leather sofas. I'm paying over 5 years, as an example. I can deduct only 1 year's worth of payments. So 1 year's worth of payments I can deduct. Or arrears. Arrears meaning I have outstanding rent. I have overdue rent. I've not paid this rent. I can deduct that amount. Or any bill or debt that's overdue, I can deduct that amount as well. And that's it, really. When it comes to liabilities, right? That's all it is. Now, what I want to do with everybody is I want to quickly go on the NZF website. I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
And I'm going to show everybody the NZF website, where we'll go through the calculator. So just give me one moment while I press the share button. Here we go. And Safari. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now.
Yep.
So here it is. So if you go on the nzf.org.uk website, it says they calculate at the top, right? You can go and calculate your zakat. So once I click that button, this is what comes up. I'm ready to work out my zakat. Yes, I am. So let's start our calculation. This calculator will ask me, what do you own, right? Because remember, zakat is paid upon assets. So you need to tell the calculator, I own A, B, C, D, E. Of course, and the good thing about this is just if a person has none of these, right? He doesn't have to waste time going through those things, right? You can just go be on point and pay exactly on what you need to pay on. So, but for demonstration purposes, I've selected everything.
Fine.
What I owe, this is the debts that we just spoke about. I have some debts, so I can put that in. Let's start our calculation. So this part here, I'll put in the cash that I have. Now, as you can notice, it'll say my cash, which is the category of the asset. It'll tell you something like a little prompt or call to action. Look, this is what you need to do here. You need to enter the amount of cash you have, including money in your bank account, whatever the source. So that's that kind of call to action, that the prompt that is telling you. This need help. You can click on this if you're ever stuck or you're unsure of what you're supposed to do here. If you're unsure, this little need help thing will come up with a box will pop up and it'll tell you this is what you need to consider.
Yeah.
So that's like more of the theory. Okay. So let's put in, I have £100 in hand, because who carries cash nowadays? Come on, right?
Yeah, true.
That was a thing of the past, right? Nowadays, everything's plastic or digital, one of the two, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has cash in them. But
how accurate do you need to be, Mufti Faraz? Because I've got like pennies in bottles and stuff, stupid things like that. Do I need to work out roughly what it is, or do I have to be precise?
You need to be precise, and I would say err on the side of caution.
Fine. So if I think it's 50 or 50 or £49, put in 50, 55.
Yeah, there's no harm. So look, but in my bank account, let's say I've got a £5,000 thing in my bank account, right? Continue. Money owed to me. Yeah, I gave a friend £1,000 loan.
Yep.
Okay. I have nothing expected from a sale. Gold and silver. Yep, look how cool this is. I can either, if I don't know the value of my gold, I can change it to grams and just put the grams in. So I have 50 grams of gold, but I don't know how much it's worth right now.
Yeah.
I got 50 grams, I know that much. Silver, I know the value of silver though. I got 400 pounds worth of silver today.
Yeah.
Of silver. So I put that in. Continue. Shares. Remember we were talking about shares, long term, short term, all of that. Now the beautiful thing about this calculator is all you have to do is punch in the numbers and it's coded in already into the calculator. So automatically 25% will be taken
Yeah.
in the second box, in the second field. Right. So I've got shares worth £1,000, which I've bought purely to sell. I want to sell it next week because I've got a strong feeling they're going to go up and I want to sell them. So right now I'll pay Zakat on the full value.
Yeah.
When it's for long term, yeah. So I've got a good portfolio in the making. I've had this for like 6 years. They're currently worth £12,000. I'm going to put that in, right? Pensions. I don't know. So it gives me two options. Do you know the amount? So if I knew the amount, I can just put the value, exact value of my Zakat. But just say I don't know what my Zakat is due on my pension because it's so confusing. Pensions are really confusing. All I do then is click, I don't know the amount. Then remember, we discussed the different types of pensions.
Yeah.
So up here, this drop down, I can select the type of pension I have. Now I'll have a Sharia compliant one because I want to make sure my pension is Sharia compliant.
Yeah.
So there you go. Can you remember the percentage for Sharia compliant?
25?
Oh, 26. Not bad, not bad, right?
Almost.
Almost there. So 26%. That's already coded in, by the way. So you don't have to worry about all that. So you don't have to put 26%. You just put in the total value of your pension.
Right.
So my
So you know what it is, however many thousand. Then
£30,000. That's what it's worth right now.
Right.
Continue. Now, ISAs, junior ISAs, child trust funds. Of course, the person will ask, I'm mature, I'm an adult, I'm 25 years old, 30 years old. Why would I have a child? Why would I have an ISA, junior ISA? You might have an ISA though.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't have a junior ISA, but what I want to do, I want to pay behalf of my children as well. So I'm going to put my child's junior ISA and my ISA value together. So I put it's £500 each. So I just put 1,000 in here. I can be clever and add another field here and put it in, but I don't want to do that, right? I throw it into one. But you can do that. You can split your ISA and your child's ISA by adding another field. Nobody has a cash ISA because generally there's no Sharia compliant one in the market right now.
Right.
Continue. Crypto. Yeah, I'm a big Bitcoin fan, right? So I'm a Bitcoin fan. I have, let's give it away. I have £20,000 worth of Bitcoin, right?
So you have half of Bitcoin.
Yeah, half a Bitcoin. I bought it for like £5 and it's gone to £20,000, right? Yeah, and I'm only messing around, guys. This is purely example, right? Next thing, right? Business assets. I don't have a business, as I mentioned, at all. So I'm not going to put anything. This is purely personal. I can just skip this. Money I owe. Yeah, so this is the scary part. Yeah, I owe a mortgage. So I'm paying £600. It's an Islamic mortgage, so I can only deduct 1 month's worth because it's rent and acquisition payments. That's £600. I have £200 of utility bills to pay this month. Now I have a personal loan. All that money that I have, the Bitcoin, it never came for free, right?
Right.
I need to pay somebody off.
You borrowed some money for someone.
I've borrowed £15,000, right? I don't have overdrafts because that's not Sharia compliant. It's not halal.
Yep.
I don't want to touch it.
No interest.
Credit card. I do have a credit card. I have an Amex and it's got like £150 outstanding, right?
Yeah.
But there's no interest in that. I've not paid any interest, right?
You pay that before the end of the month and there'll be no interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then let's press continue. Let's see what happens. Wow, there you go. So this now gives you a breakdown of everything I just put into that calculator. So I have just over £40,000, right, of assets.
Yeah.
I have almost £16,000 worth of debt. So I'll deduct what happens. Look at the calculator, what it does. It deducts this from here. That's left with £24,000, right? £24,500. Now look, the 2.5% is not on the Nisab. It's on this value here.
Yeah.
And there's
my just to say that you've got more money than that. That's
it. That's all it is, right? And that's my zakat done. £615.
Perfect.
Imagine, right?
See, so everybody listening and watching, you can see that under that it's actually not that difficult once you get onto the website, you put your details in. It does a lot of the work for you, and some of the questions that we ask, they fall out naturally because of the way in which the Zakat calculator is done. So alhamdulillah, I think that's a really good way of doing it. And that's the way I've been doing it for the last couple of years. And I found it much, much easier. I had a lot of these questions before. And if I'm honest, I've kind of gone, well, I can give this over to the Zakat calculator, and alhamdulillah, it does the job really well.
No, alhamdulillah. Look, now this is the time for the audience now. Let's open up the floor for some Q&A.
So I've got a whole bunch of questions, but let's start at the top, inshallah. Let's start with who is the first person? That Salam, I owe my brother £10,000, which I intend to pay eventually. Which I tend to eventually pay back, but I don't plan to make any repayments in the next 12 months. And my brother is okay with that. Who pays the zakat on the 10K, me or my brother?
Yeah, so if you have the 10K with you now, you'll pay zakat on it and your brother will pay, because it's become an asset for both.
Yeah.
However, if you don't have the 10K with you, meaning you've not kept it with you, it's been spent or whatever, then he will only pay, you will not have to pay zakat.
Yeah. Do you pay zakat on a student loan?
No, it's a loan, so you don't pay. I mean, if you're talking about the grant, right, or bursary or the maintenance fee, then yes, you do, right? The maintenance loan that you receive as part of cash, that is zakatable. If you're talking about the money that you're paying back, that is not zakatable.
Yeah. So some of it has been taken from my salary. This is the same lady. Some of it is taken from my salary each month and has been for the last 2 years. Do I pay zakat on the remaining amount?
No, you don't.
Yeah, perfect. Can you deduct your tax liability?
Yeah, if it's been incurred, then you can deduct your tax liability.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. For a second, I didn't understand what you meant, but then I realized straight away. On pension, if my pension is invested in a number of portfolios, I know, e.g., 20% property, rest on others, how do I calculate? And how do I calculate on previous missed years? So that's a really good question.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So you think, I know the percentage, right? Example, 40%. So if it's 40% property, you don't pay zakat on property. But others, the word others generally incorporates commodities, money market securities. They use the word others as a very broad name and throw in so many different asset classes. Majority of the asset classes under others are zakatable. So I would pay zakat 2.5% of the full others value. And I would also just double check the Sharia compliance of that pension. Yeah,
Naseem, hopefully that answers the question for you. Do you pay zakat as soon as you reach Nisab, or do you wait the year?
Well, see, that's yours. Go on.
So you've got a specific date, right? So if it's the 1st of Ramadan, if it's the 1st of Ramadan this year, and that's the date at which you paid last year, or that's the date at which your Nisab started, then you pay it on that date. Unless you went underneath the Nisab. If you went underneath the Nisab, then you have to wait until you're back above the Nisab to start paying again.
Yeah, so you don't. So the question is just breaking it down. Then you don't pay as soon as you reach Nisab. You have to wait 1 year, and after that 1 year, you'll see whether you have the live Nisab or not. If you do, you pay zakat. If you don't, you don't pay zakat.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers that. And then the sister asks about going over the second slide. Do you have you got the slide on your desktop there? Should we just talk it through?
Okay, let's just do this quickly. Which second slide?
I assume it's this one or this one. This one maybe. We're assuming it's this one.
I mean, if you can just type in and let us know which one it is, right? Yeah. Exactly the title, and then we can, because the second slide might be, for me, this is the second slide. I'm sure you don't refer to this, right?
Yeah.
So
we talk to the agenda.
We might be this. So there's a difference of opinion here, right? In the slides. So you can definitely help us out here.
So Sister Sylvia, if you just confirm which one it is exactly, then we'll come back to that in a second. Why is Nisab marketed or recommended more towards silver as opposed to gold, despite gold having a more stable value in real terms?
Yeah, I mean, a very good question. I mean, the only reason is because the scholars are of the view that, look, if we use silver, more people will pay zakat, and therefore it'll be more beneficial to the needy and the poor, right?
Yeah,
that's the only reason.
And that's a very, very good reason. I mean, that's part of the reason we pay zakat, right? So
exactly, and I think it's because, look, how many of us pay sadaqah?
Yeah,
right. Very few of it, and that's another weakness and deficiency in us, right? Because Muslims were known by the sadaqah that they give. The hadith says, "Sadaqah to burhan." A sadaqah is a testimony for you, meaning it's a sign of your faith. So we should be give us a sadaqah as well.
And it will testify for you, right, on the day of judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So that's how powerful is that there's this other entities will come to you and say, protect him because he did this good, and we're going to need all the help we can on that day.
Definitely.
What if you don't know the date your zakat cycle began?
So what you should do then is just pick a date now and stick to it properly.
And that should be an Islamic date, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry, it went down to the bottom of the page for some reason. How should we pay zakat on the savings in our pension account?
Savings. How do we pay zakat on the savings? I mean, you apply the same kind of what we talked about. Look at the type of fund it is, right? So because the savings will not be all in cash form, they'll be invested into assets. So it depends on what assets there are within your pension fund, and you pay zakat accordingly.
The next question is just Assalamu alaikum, and the answer is Wa alaikum salam.
Okay. What about the one is zakat payable on land I inherited with my siblings?
Oh, sorry, I missed that one. Is zakat payable on land I inherited with my siblings?
Yeah, no, zakat is not payable.
Yeah,
on that. Very easy, quick one. That's why.
I bought shares 20 years ago, as my parents advised. No intention. Burnley kept them. Do I pay 25 zakat on the full amount? And I assume that's no.
Yeah, I'm just Burnley. I'm sure Burnley is a typo.
Typo, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's a share or a company with shares. Kept them. Do I pay? Yeah, so it'll be just 25% for every year, right?
Yeah, but if they bought the shares, and then they haven't sold them for 25 years, it's only if they sell them now, right, that they have to pay.
No, they have to pay every single year still.
But I thought if you buy shares long term, then you don't pay zakat on them.
No, so it's, good now. It's good you asked it. So
yeah,
zakat is due on shares every single year. It just depends on whether you're buying and selling them as like a business or whether it's long term. If it's long term, the share still represents some zakatable assets in a company.
Right.
And that's why you need to pay zakat on every single year still. So in this scenario, you'll pay 25% every single year.
Fine. So it's 25% every single year, brother or sister. So that's useful actually, because that was a misunderstanding from my side. It has been established that zakat is calculated on business premises and stock.
Not on premises, no.
No, I didn't think it was. If this wealth is in the business, then they don't constitute static wealth as such. Will they continue to be zakatable? Is there such an opinion outside of the Hanafi school? I understand that this workshop does not cover the comparative fiqh, but any insight would be fantastic.
Yeah, it is. We did discuss comparative fiqh. I'm sure I discussed the Shafi'i school, Maliki school, and Hanbali school, wherever, the gold and silver, the
ages of the
ages, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So this is a comparative fiqh masterclass, right? As much as possible. Yeah, I mean, look, property is not zakatable. So your business premise is not zakatable. It's only stock. Everybody agrees on that. There's no difference.
Yeah. So I think that answers that. I bought shares in my company 5 years ago with the intention to give child to find university. Don't intend to sell, turn out, just give equivalent of what has been saved value. Do I give on full amount?
I don't understand what you mean by I bought shares in my company. Right. So you bought shares in, if it's already a company, do you mean like the company, like for example, a person works in Royal Mail and they've bought Royal Mail shares as an example, right?
Yeah.
So just is it your company? Are you a director of that company? Are you an employee of that company?
Yeah, brother or sister, if you could rephrase that question, please. We're not quite sure what you mean.
Because everything has a different kind of response, right? So you just
yeah. I want clarification on the requirement to pay zakat on assets held for 1 lunar year. I was instructed to ignore this requirement as we have monthly incomes and we can never have any wealth in your possession for greater than 1 lunar year, and it doesn't have zakat paid on it. Therefore, it's better to ignore 1 lunar year requirement and pay zakat on your entire wealth as it stands on your zakat anniversary.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the same thing.
Exactly. Small. The summary of all of that is, yep, you just take a snapshot calculation, whatever you have at the end of the lunar year, you pay on that.
So we're using lunar year for our nisabs, but actually it is, you're right, it's a snapshot method at the point at which you're calculated your nisab last year, you're calculating again, and if you're above, then you go ahead and pay, inshallah.
Absolutely.
Salams, if you have already paid some money in zakat before the anniversary date, do you simply deduct the zakat you paid before from whatever zakat you owe your zakat anniversary?
Correct.
Yep. Yes, sister, you do. Zakat on high value watches and semi-precious stones. That's good. Okay, good.
I'm going to do this with one word. Go on.
Good. I'm invested in a company, Kestrel, on Cedars. How do I calculate the zakat on that investment? Is that Arib, do you think?
Yeah, it is Arib. I think you have to give Arib a call, right? And work
Arib. I'm invested in a company, Kestrel, on Cedars. How would I calculate the zakat on that investment?
Yeah, so you need to find out the underlying zakatable assets in the company. So I would say contact the company, the CEO, and say, could you give us an understanding of how much of the underlying assets are zakatable? What's the percentage like?
And if you really want to, either contact Mufti Faraz or myself, and we'll give you his details. What if your mortgage isn't Sharia compliant? Change it?
Then I would say change it first and foremost. That's probably the more important thing to do.
Yeah, inshallah. And we're not being judgmental, and it's unfair to kind of point fingers, but inshallah, it's good to be using Sharia compliant tools where you can. In order to avoid interest, I've been saving for 15 years, alhamdulillah, mashallah. I pay zakat on the full amount. It's a big amount, but with prices increasing, how are people in my position able to save in a Sharia compliant way? Okay, very good.
Yeah, I mean, look, the truth is, zakat does not. This is a valid question, but we have to look at the bigger zoom out a bit. Zakat is in no way, shape, or form an expense or a burden, right? Allah does not take away money from you by paying zakat. Allah tells us in the Quran, وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ. Allah will always add money to add money. And this is very important because we live in a world of means, in a world of, we don't see many a time the kind of spiritual element behind what's happening. We only see the face value of things, right? So we have to understand that whenever we worship Allah or do anything which Allah tells us to do, it'll never be of disadvantage to us. That's our belief. It cannot be. Allah, being Allah, He will never disadvantage His believer. Allah tells in the Quran, Allah waliyul ladina amanu. Allah is a friend of the believers. So by you paying zakat for 15 years on savings that you have, never think, how do you know it's because of your zakat that you've got money from year 10 to year 15?
Let me give you a real world example of that.
Go for it.
So myself and my wife, we both work. She gets paid significantly less than myself. And she gives so much more money in charity than I do, like so much more, like orders of magnitude more. And what I've noticed is there is barakah in her wealth that there isn't in mine. And I'm trying now to rectify that. But I will get a fine for something. She'll never get fined for anything. I will have to pay something extra. She never has to pay for anything extra. She'll always find a good deal. She'll always get something which is in a different way, and she'll get it at a price 15%, 20% cheaper. There is so much more barakah in her wealth. And I'm 100% convinced, is because she pays so much more charity. She gives way more sadaqah than I do. And she uses this thing that you said, Mufti Faraz, that she'll go, is it this much? Okay, I will pay this much then. And there's barakah in that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us there's going to be barakah in that.
And that's it. That's the key thing. Always, as Muslims, it's so important. That's why is Iman and Shahada the first pillar? If you get that right, you understand everything else properly. Then you'll miss your salah. Right? That's why Shahada and the Iman is your first pillar. You get that right, everything will fall into place automatically.
Exactly. So the next question is, do you pay zakat on pension even you don't know the amount involved? I think is the...
Yeah, I mean, so you need to find out the amount you pay, right? If it's a defined contribution scheme.
And the next one is, what if you don't know the carats of gold?
You just ask a jeweler.
Jewelers are now open in the UK, so inshallah go to jewelers. Hi Salam, I struggle hugely with calculating my zakat. I'm self-employed barrister. Inshallah, my tax year is April, which is obviously not only lunar calendar, Western calendar. I never quite know what my actual savings are because how much tax I pay. And chambers expenses always fluctuate every year, and I always need to give monies saved in case my diary goes quiet. After any advice will be appreciated.
Yeah, so remember, zakat is a snapshot calculation. You don't have to worry about the full year's worth of income, expense, all of that. Your date that you pay your zakat on, work out whatever you have at that moment in time, and that's it. You pay your zakat. You don't have to worry about all your months, your year's earning, or your future, the remaining of the year's expenses. Don't worry about all of that volatility. Just whatever you have right now, that's all you do.
I remember that because the lunar calendar, the Gregorian calendar shift like this all year round, it might be some years that you benefit greatly from that because you have to maybe pay less zakat, and some years you benefit greatly because you have to pay more zakat, right? But it evens itself out. You leave that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't worry. So next question is, do I deduct mortgage payments for the next 12 months? It's conventional mortgage.
Yeah, it's only the capital repayments, not any interest that you pay.
Yeah. Tax year just finished, and I now know how much tax is due. Both personal tax and corporation tax. Tax is due within the next 9 months. Can I deduct tax from zakat? I believe you can.
Yes, both. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Could you clarify if we also pay zakat on pension contributions we pay through our salary?
No, so your pension contributions go into your pension and they're much funded by your employer. So there's no zakat. You pay zakat on the fund itself. You don't have to pay double pay on your salary that's being deducted and your pension. It's the pension itself that you pay on.
You're right. So now I'm shifting over to the other panel. Is zakat payable on land and owner? We asked on that one. The scrap value of gold is considerably less than the pound per gram value. Should we still use this value? Also, what if we don't know what the carat of gold is?
Yeah, so that's the reason why you use the scrap gold value, because your gold is secondhand. It is cheaper. It's less valuable than the new gold. So that's why you use scrap gold value. And then if you don't know the carat of gold, you just go to your jeweler, they'll tell you.
Yeah, and that applies to both things, right? So if you go to your jeweler and try to sell that piece of jewelry, they won't give you the pounds per gram value, right? They'll give you some other value that they've applied to it. So that's why. So is zakat due on the pension contribution? No, that's fine. Okay, how you calculate zakat if you own a business share? Do you calculate it as the same share of the business assets and revenues?
Yes, it's on the underlying zakatable assets, right? You don't look at revenues. So you don't look at your income statement or profit and loss, none of that, right? You look at
money,
the balance sheet.
Yeah, balance sheet, exactly.
Go ahead. Next.
Is a lease car a liability you can deduct?
No, so if it's a lease car, you'd have potentially a debt that you're repaying, which you could deduct, right? If you have a debt. But that's it. Yeah. So it's again 12 months, same principle would apply.
So if you're paying £300 a month, you can deduct £300 12, but you can't deduct the £40,000 the car is worth.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Because look, in car finance, that entire you have to pay that amount, right?
Yeah.
Even if you to cancel a contract, they usually require you to pay either full or half, depending who it is, right?
Yeah.
But there's always there's definitely more than the year's payment, so you can deduct for the 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely great. Okay. Tax year. Can I detect these questions from Facebook? Is my NHS pension zakat payable at all? I won't collect until 29 years from now, inshallah.
Nope, not payable. NHS pension is not zakatable.
So inshallah, that helps. There's no zakat on an NHS pension. If you are in debt, do you still have to pay zakat on the things like salary?
Remember, key thing, you don't pay zakat on salaries. Your savings are retained earnings. That's what you pay zakat on. What I would do is, just to be on the safe side, go on the calculator, put the amount of debt that you have to repay within the next 12 months, and then see whether you have to pay zakat or not, because your debt might not be significant. It might be insignificant, immaterial. So therefore, I would say use a calculator just to double check.
Yeah. Zakat payer can receive zakat in the same time. I don't understand what that means.
It's not clear to me either.
The zakat on my pension is greater than my savings. What do I do here? That's a really good question.
Good question. What you do then is make sure your zakat on your pension is calculated correctly. That's the number one thing, because it seems strange that you haven't given so much. And secondly, if it's very large, then what I would do is just stretch the payments out. You don't have to pay all in one go.
Yeah.
You can pay every month, pay £10, £20, whatever's in your capacity, right? Pay monthly on it, and then just keep a note of what's outstanding. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. And then if we switch back over to the other one, just to clarify, one uses scrap silver value of jewelry to work out value for zakat.
Yeah, scrap gold value. Yeah, that's right.
This is a good question. Do you pay zakat on reward points, nectar, or acts?
No zakat on your Amex or nectar.
Right, so rephrase question. As an employee, I bought shares in the company I work for.
Okay.
This company, the company share scheme, for each share I purchase, I get one free after 3 years. I bought with the intention to save money for my child's university fees. Currently, I paid Daisy on full value of the shares I have in hand, including free ones that have come up to 3 years, but not in shares that I won't get until 3
Yeah.
years.
So basically, the answer to that question is, you pay zakat on the shares that you have right now. Whatever you do have, you'll apply the 25% proxy and pay. The shares you haven't received yet, you will not pay zakat on. You'll only pay on what you do have and pay 25% on that.
Right. How do you determine if someone's eligible for paying zakat?
Yeah, it is a challenging one. But they have to be below the Nisab, the threshold, the silver threshold that we just discussed, right? Which is £370 approximately. That's when they are eligible to pay zakat. If they're above that, they have the Nisab, they cannot receive zakat.
Right. Mariam Shehu asks, what is the website?
I'm not sure which website she's
I
referring to.
assume she's talking about the NZF website, which is, I think, nzf.co.uk, Mahbub?
Yep, that's nzf.org.uk.
.org.uk, excuse me, .org.uk.
Yes, nzf.org.uk.
Perfect.
Put a link on the chat.
Yes, if you could, that'd be really helpful. Jazakallah ahead. Okay, so we have come to the end of our questions. I think we've done such a good job that everybody has run out of questions. Oh no, we've got one. My friend pays zakat on her father's wealth as he does not. Can someone else pay your zakat?
Yeah, someone else can pay zakat, no problem. As long as it's with your consent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Have we covered the questions in the chat? There's a few that also filtered out on the chat as well.
Yeah, we've gone through them as well.
Yeah.
And the Q&A as well.
Okay, so here's a question. A lot of charities take 10% admin to administer zakat. Do I have to top up zakat?
No, you don't have to. I mean, if all I would say on that is, as if the charity has a zakat policy, and they're very transparent on how the zakat is being used in admin, and they have a scholar or reviewed, it's been reviewed, then that can be considered an amilin alayha if they have a scholar which is reviewing, overseeing that. If they don't, then I'd just be very cautious, because zakat can be abused, right? Like this, right? So you have to make sure you have that the charity has some kind of oversight, some kind of scholarly board or Sharia advisor reviewing it and making sure that that money is not being abused and just being used and ring fenced correctly the way it's supposed to be used.
Right. Do you think it's worth very quickly going over the 8 categories? I
think that's a separate conversation. It's too long for you.
Okay. A lot of no. This next question: is there a structure of zakat paying? Start with the father family, if anyone is eligible, then mom's family, then neighbors, etc.
No, so I mean, look, you can't give zakat to your parents, your children, your wife, your spouse. You can give it to your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, your nephew, your niece, and anybody else and everyone else, right? As long as they're Muslim and eligible.
Yeah. Do you pay zakat on membership fees to professional membership bodies?
No, not that I know of.
Oh, sorry. She means, can you deduct that?
Yes, if it's fees which are due, they've been incurred and they're due, then you can deduct them. If
then you can deduct that. So I'll tell you what, this it feels like we're running out of questions, which is actually really, really positive. Because the first session I did, we did a full hour and a half, and we had still a huge number of questions. So I think we're now into day 17 of Ramadan, and it feels like we have done a good job, alhamdulillah.
Is there a poll to share with people? Is there any poll that you want to share?
Mahbub?
Yes, there is. Yes.
It'll be good to see people's feedback. Let's see. From the start of the session till now, I hope people are more confident in paying the zakat.
If all 43 people can participate, that would be really good. Only 4 questions, and it will help us improve these masterclasses for future years, inshallah.
So there's a couple of questions just clarifications that are coming. Let's just do those first. The sister, I think she's in family, meaning cousins. Can you give zakat to your cousins?
You can if they're eligible, yeah.
Okay. And does it matter if they're father's side or?
No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, yeah. So somebody's asked a question, how do you calculate daisy on missed years? I don't know what daisy means.
Yeah.
Is zakat payment due on money in the bank?
Yes.
If you're a non-profit?
Yes. Oh, if it's a non-profit?
Yes, a non-profit. It's a madrasa.
No, because that belongs to like a trust or a charity or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get this poll done, people. If inshallah everybody who's online, you've still got some time to do the poll. I think Mahbub, how many people? 40 people on the 40.
Yeah, there's 42 at the moment, and we're 50% of the way.
Okay, so come on.
We're going to hold you hostage as well. No one leaves until all of them are done.
Someone just came on with a question, can I deduct my tax liability? And I think the answer to that is yes, you can. Can Mufti Faraz verify that, please, for me?
Yeah, you can do.
Yeah, good. I don't want to be giving any fatwas out. Will the recording be emailed or will it just be on Facebook?
It will be emailed over, yes.
It will be emailed, inshallah. What number are we up to? Come on, people.
24 at the moment.
Come on, guys. 24 is not good enough. We can do better than that. I'd like to get at least to 40. 40 is a good number, I think, inshallah. 25.
It's like an auction.
It's like an auction. 26. Go ahead at 27. Someone give me a 27.
Let's get 30 and then we'll call it wraps. I think this is a shy crowd.
So Nora, inshallah, two things to do then for your question. Firstly, listen to this over again when you receive it. Look at the slide deck that Mufti Faraz went over one more time. And the third thing the two more things actually I would do is go to the NZF website and do the zakat calculator. That will help. And finally, I think you can ask questions on the website, right, Mahbub?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can ask questions on the website as well. So if you come to a point where you're specifically still confused about a one point, then ask the question there, inshallah. That will be the best thing to do. So I think we are. So Nora's now doing it perfectly. Well done. So inshallah, that was, I think, a really useful session. We have 31 people who answered the questionnaire, so that's really great. We answered some really great questions. Thank you so much to Mufti Faraz. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it, and thank you for serving the Ummah in the way that you're doing. Mr. Mahbub, thank you for your assistance in the background. Again, we really do appreciate putting these sessions together and the work that you're doing to help the Ummah. So listen, everybody, have a great iftar, have a great Jummah, have a very strong finish to your Ramadan. And I'm saying that to myself more than anybody else. Things are judged on the way that they're finished, not the way they start. So these last few days now, let's really tighten our belts and give it everything, inshallah. Someone sent me a hadith the other day that said, they asked somebody who had passed away, what would you do if you would go back? And the person said, I'd like one more day in Ramadan, because Ramadan is such a blessing, and we're in Ramadan, so let's try and take the best of those blessings, inshallah. So thank you very much, everybody. Jazakallah khair. Have a great day, and inshallah we will catch you next time. Assalamu alaikum.